What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for another week of building Coruscant and Lego. This week's probably not going to be the most exciting update, unfortunately. I've been doing and working on such cool things over the past month, getting the Senate buildings and sections started, statues, battle damage. This week I have to catch up on some of the more boring things. I'm going to be working on the road, building the front wall of the bank, doing other kind of like filler stuff like that. But fear not, I do have a pretty cool minifig haul I think you're going to enjoy, as well as showing you guys some massive progress I got done in the Senate section. Two more things I want to quickly mention before we jump into the update. I want to give a huge thank you to all of you guys who have reached out to me on Instagram offering to donate or send your Senate commandos to me. I was not expecting that. I was not planning on that. So it means a lot. I won't be able to accept everybody's, but the fact that you guys are willing to do that for this mock really warmed my heart and means a lot. Another thing, you've heard it before, but this mock is getting really expensive. I'm in the home stretch and I'm actually moving in May. So I don't have the ability to stretch this mock series out for much longer. This needs to be done by the end of April. And so I've been spending as much as I can to get the Senate building and section finished. And I really appreciate the donations you guys have left in the streams, the super thanks you leave in the comments, the Patreons. If you are interested in donating or helping out in any way, you could always do one of those things. I will link my Patreon down below in the comments. People who join get early access to Coruscant updates, Patreon exclusive content, as well as some gaming streams depending on what tier you join. With that out of the way, let the fun begin. To kick off this week, I'm working on the road. I know, everyone's favorite section. I've had the pieces to do it for a while, but with how busy I have been with the Senate section, it's fallen behind. The road is getting close to the gunship crash site though, which is exciting because then I can start the battle damage section of the road where the gunship smashed into and skidded along the top of it. I'm going to use that same technique as I did with the Vulture Droid crash site. I'm also going to start adding headlight bricks into the road soon so I can place down the minifigs when the time comes. I feel like I have to force myself to work on the bank every week. Interior builds have never been my favorite, and a bank just isn't a very exciting place to build, but I need the walls done before I can do the roof, so I'm going to build one of the front walls right now. But man, working on the bank and entertainment complex has me really glad I don't have any large interiors like this in my next large-scale mock project. I'm also hoping to start the pillar that will hold up the roof this week. Speaking of sections I don't like, I'm going to build more of the entertainment complex second story. I'm also much closer to finishing this. In fact, I'm only one package away from having all the parts for the structure. I do think once this section is done, it will be a very popular one because of all the small builds inside and all the different minifigures running around doing their thing. All right, let's do this. The entertainment complex is coming together nicely. It's so close to being done. Just this last little patch over here, and then tile off the rest of the floor, and the main structure will be done. I do need to get some more parts for like tables, chairs, and these pictures, but that could come in the final update of the series. Oh, one thing I have been trying to figure out is what I should do with the very top right here. So on this side I have 2 rows of tile, and this connects the clip to the wall, which is nice because now I can lift these up and down. And the other option I've been considering is running a row of tile behind these clips so all the studs are exposed. The reason I'm considering this option with 1 row of exposed studs is because it lines up very nice with the top of the outer wall, so it basically just slopes right into it, and you can see it's pretty close to seamless. There's a little bit of a gap there, but it's not a big deal. But if I were to apply this technique over here, there'd be like a big lip right here, and this whole roof section would be a lot higher than these slopes. But I feel like this nice, completely tiled off technique looks pretty nice compared to this one that does have a row of exposed studs. So let me know which of those you guys prefer down below in the comments. Moving on to the bank and the road. It's coming in very nicely. I left this gap open right here in the road because I want this kind of broken section to bleed out into the road right here and over right here. So I'm gonna have to take apart a little part of this and kind of do some of this style stuff over there so it looks more like a circular crater, because it would look weird to have this broken section and this nice neat 90-degree angle right here of road. Okay, the boring stuff's out of the way, and now it's time for the main attraction. Look at these steps. So I've been working hard over the weekend, and off camera I built up this entire side. So you can see The plateau's all done, except for the tiling off. I've got the foundations where the statues are going to go. I built the steps all the way up to the 3 wide steps, started those, and they run all the way over to there. Unfortunately, I did run out of parts, so I'm waiting on some to finish those off. But look how awesome this is. It's just so grand and imposing. It makes me so excited to see what the Senate building is going to look like paired with this epic entranceway. But this is it, guys. The steps are done. This is all I have to do. I mean, obviously I have to finish up a few spots, but like there's no more steps that need to be built on this section. What's happening next is I need to scoot this table back over here, and I'm going to start the actual foundation of where the Senate building is going to sit, and that's going to come over here on top, clip onto these steps, and so there'll probably be, another 1 or 2 steps, but that'll be part of this section, and then we'll get into smaller, more ornate steps up here at the top at the entrance of the building. So I'm going to be doing that next, as well as working on this tunnel roof. I got a ton of suggestions from you guys. A lot of stuff to think about. Some of you guys were suggesting fountains, more statues, Republic logo. I did really like the Republic logo, but I don't really know how I'd do like a brick built one. And then someone also suggested an AV7 anti-vehicle cannon, which technically does fit, as you can see, but I just feel like this is way too long range of a gun emplacement to have right here at the Senate, because the battle is going to be taking place right here. It's not like it can just launch this little missile that's going to travel 50 feet then drop. This is for stuff clear down there. So I don't think it would really make sense from a logistics standpoint. So honestly, I think I might just leave it empty, leave it blank, because there are going to be so many minifigures and gunships and other stuff going on. I don't want to overcrowd these plateaus and this tunnel roof so that I don't have room to be able to tell any kind of a story. Because, I need space for the police gunship, the regular gunship. And you can see a gunship will just barely fit on the top of the tunnel. I've got about this much space for like barricades, minifigs, and other things. So I think it'll be best to leave this empty, because this definitely won't really fit on a plateau. You can see it just absolutely dwarfs it. So if I do want to have any kinds of ships picking people up and leaving, I'm going to need a lot of empty space on here. And so if I were to put statues, fountains, or other stuff, it would just get in the way of everything. I know this has been a long talking session, but I've got one more thing to show you guys, a little haul. And it's not important because of the bricks. This isn't anything you haven't seen before. I got some more Senate Commandos. Look at these guys. These clones are seriously underrated. And I feel like they add such a cool pop of color to this gray mock, which I wasn't really thinking about. Like I had one of these in the background of last week's thumbnail, and it was just this little dot off in the distance, but it just added just such a loud pop of color. So I think having a bunch of these guys running around the steps doing stuff is going to look really cool. I want to get the tunnel design finished before I move the last table back into position and can't reach the spot as easily. I really like the idea of a giant brick-built Republic logo for this spot, but I don't think I could build one out of plates and tiles, and the roof just isn't thick enough to do a brick-built one. So I'm thinking about keeping things simple and just adding a fancy step of sorts. I also didn't realize, but this design is really hard to see in the time lapse, so stay tuned for a better look. The table is going back in place, and it's time to build the foundations of the Senate building. I've been storing up lots of light bluish gray brick for this, so hopefully I can get the entire outer foundation done quickly. In an effort to save myself some bricks and time, I'm not doing a wall of brick running along the back of the mock, since nothing is back there and it won't be visible in the finale, so I'm just going to leave it open. I don't fully know what's been going on, but I've had a lot of brain fog this week, and as a result I've messed up a lot while building. Even writing these voiceovers have been really tough. What I'm trying to do now is plate off the Senate section. I ran into so many problems while doing this, and I had to readjust the steps and where they end because I'd stopped them at a bad height that was eating up a lot of parts unnecessarily, but I'll explain more about that in the walkthrough. All these large plates and pillars, though, reminds me of the good old days of building Utapau. Okay, let's see if I can actually make sense of what's going on here for you guys, because I myself am a little confused, and for some reason I just can't really explain myself this week. But before we get into the issues of the steps in the Senate building, I want to show you guys this little design I built into the top of the plateau. I think it looks pretty cool so far. It's way too small. It's going to need to go to at least right here, and I think go all the way up to about right here. But I think the overall shape is cool, and it'll give it enough texture and enough detail that this flat section won't look too boring and out of place. Moving on to this, just nightmare that's been driving me crazy all afternoon. So I built this section to be modular, so it's going to be connected in place by tiles, but once I pop off a few key tiles, you can see I will be able to remove this whole section, which will be nice for moving That way I don't have to take apart, because this section right here is also modular, so both of these come apart, so I won't need to take them apart completely to be able to move them to my new place. And then, like I said, I'm leaving this entire back section of the mock open. I just felt like there was no need to buy a bunch of dark bluish gray and build a wall right here that you'll never see. That way now I can stick my hand in here too and fiddle around and fix stuff if it breaks. Let's get down to it. When I first was planning on what I was going to do here, you guys remember I said I was going to have this final step right here lap over and connect onto this section from this one. So basically this section would have an overhang like that, and once I pulled it apart it would hang over the top. The issue I ran into is I was going to need to then line the entire front of this section with enough pillars to hold up these plates, because they need to be very firmly supported. Whereas if I do it this way, where the steps end at the end of this section and there is no overlap, I only need to put in pillars every so often to keep these 16 by 16 plates up. So I saved myself a lot of brick there, and that's why I decided to do that. But in order for that to work, I needed to add an extra step in here, because originally these steps stopped right here. That left this little 2 stud wide gap open. So what I did was just created another step right there, and then you can see once these two sections are connected, it creates one more step. Sounds simple enough, but it took me so much headache getting here. I had to readjust a lot of things. I had some issues where these steps stopped at the wrong height, because what I could have done is just had this be the last step and then keep this part flush with that and run that the whole way across. The issue I had with that is you can see these 2 plates right here. I would need to run 2 rows of plates across this entire section, which ended up being a lot of plate. So by adding in 1 extra step like this, I swapped out these 2 plates, you can see, for brick. And so this used far less brick by having this extra step than I would have used plate. I don't even know if that makes sense, but that's why I ended up adding in an extra step instead of making this the top step and the final height of the rest of this build. To be honest, guys, this was not the week I was hoping to have. That wraps up all the progress. Let's go talk about what happened and what I'm going to be doing moving forward next week. Man, oh man, this week was a struggle. I just couldn't get my head into the build this week. I think it's for a couple of reasons. First is I've got some health issues that are going on that are just giving me some brain fog, making it hard to sleep. And so, when you don't sleep, it's hard to articulate yourself. It's hard to think clearly. And another thing has just been, I wasn't working on the most exciting or inspiring portions of the build. Like I said, entertainment complex and bank are 2 of my least favorite areas to work on, and so that kind of sapped a little bit of my motivation to build. Speaking of next week though, I am finally officially going to start building the actual Senate building. I have the parts on the way. I have a little section right here that I'm working on that's kind of going to help me get that rounded circular shape for the front of it, and I'm really excited to talk Senate building with you guys. I've been anticipating this for a while. I know all of you guys have been as well. All that being said, that wraps up this update. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you next time, but until then, happy building.